Troy City Council meeting for November 8th, 2010 to order. We welcome you all here this evening, and we'll begin with our invocation, which is provided by Pastor Dan Lewis of the Troy Christian Chapel, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor, please rise.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, tonight we ask for your blessing upon this meeting, upon our council, upon our fellow citizens, upon the business that will be conducted here tonight. We also ask for wisdom, more than wisdom that we can conjure up out of our own resources. We ask for wisdom that is deeper and more profound than that. And we also pray for our community, for many are distressed in many ways, and we ask for your mercy. We don't ask for mercy on the basis of what we necessarily deserve, but we ask for mercy on the basis of your kindness to us. May that be shown to us as we acknowledge you. For this we pray in the name of Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Always nice to see you. May we have the roll call, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Here.
Councilmember Beltramini? Here. Fleming?
Here.
Howrlack?
Here.
Kerwin? Here. McGinnis?
Here.
Slater?
Here.
Quorum present. This evening, we begin another year with council, and so we begin with our installation ceremony for the 2010-2011 City Council. And our first item is the appointment of Mayor Pro Tem.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Slater.
I'd like to move that Troy City Council hereby appoint Councilwoman Kerwin to serve as Mayor Pro Tem for the City Council of the City of Troy for the term scheduled to expire at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, November 14th, 2011.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Slater, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, that we appoint Councilwoman Mary Kerwin for the position of Mayor Pro Tem for a term scheduled to expire at 7:30 on Monday, November 14th, 2011. Discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yes, for many years we've used a process for appointing the Mayor Pro Tem. Just, I think, last year we changed the rules of procedure. But we've used a process where it was a rotation based upon years of service and tied to the election. And I believe if we follow that, which has served us very well, very fair, and gives everyone an equal opportunity to serve as Mayor Pro Tem of that rotation, that this year would fall to Councilwoman Robin Beltramini, who served council for 9 years now. And so I know the rules and procedures allows us to deviate from that, but I think that served us well, and we've done that for many years, and I'd like to continue that. I know that Councilwoman Kerwin would do a good job as well, but I think just in fairness, she's been on the council, this is her 4th year. If she's reelected, certainly she'll have an opportunity, and that rotation would come up, I believe, in 2012 year. So I think that would be the fair way to do it, just to be consistent with what we've done in the past. So with that, I would propose that we have Robin Beltramini as Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Further, well, we're having discussion of the item that's before us.
Mayor.
Councilman Slater?
Maybe I was mistaken, but I was under the impression that Councilwoman Beltramini had been Mayor Pro Tem in the past. Once. So I thought it was fair that seeing that she's had it once and Mary Kerwin has not, that it would be fair for her to have it this time. So that's why I nominated her.
I understand.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yeah. I understand. I appreciate that, Councilman Slater. But there has been a rotation process that we've used for many years. And if you look at that, going back as far as I can recall, that served us well. And that's why I would nominate Councilwoman Robin Beltramini, because that gives her the opportunity. She's been on for 9 years, and she has served once as Mayor Pro Tem. But in that rotation, she's entitled to that again if we follow the way we've done for many years in the past. I don't see the need to change from that. And certainly, Councilwoman Kerwin, if she was reelected the following year, I would certainly support her serving as Mayor Pro Tem at that time. But I like the rotation just the way it is.
Mrs. Bartholomew, would you clarify for us, we've had a nomination and a second, and then as we were discussing, we had a second nomination and a second. Is that correct?
That is correct. The second motion would have to be made in the terms of a substitution and an amendment. So if that is the intent of the maker, that is the procedure that would need to be followed.
Okay. I'd like to do that and substitute, amend and substitute, resolve that the Troy City Council hereby appoints Robin Beltramini to serve as Mayor Pro Tem for the City Council of the City of Troy for a term scheduled to expire at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, November the 14th, 2011.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Fleming, seconded by Councilman Howard-Lack, that we appoint Robin Beltramini as Mayor Pro Tem for the City Council of the City of Troy for a term scheduled to expire 7:30 p.m. on Monday, November 14th, 2011. Discussion of the motion. Councilman Howard-Lack?
Yes, and the reason why I supported that is because our rotation order going into 2009, on November 9, 2009, there is a draft resolution, and that's consistent with previous years when we had the Mayor Pro Tem appointment. And the order was Wade Fleming, Robin Beltramini would be next, followed by Mary Kerwin, Maureen McGinnis, Dane Slater, and then me. So now that Wade has had 1 year, naturally it would be fair for Robin Beltramini to serve as Mayor Pro Tem in that order. And the thing to keep in mind is that next year Robin Beltramini will not be here as a member of council, as she and I are both term limited. And therefore, if Councilwoman Kerwin serves 9 or 10 years on council, I imagine that she herself would serve as Mayor Pro Tem 2 or perhaps even 3 times as the order is rotated. So in order to, and I do believe that when we get to our next item, which is the rules of procedure, that we should reinstate actually spelling out who is next in line so that this is simply a formality as opposed to a major situation like we have here.
Any further discussion? Then the vote will determine, since we have a substitution, and then if that substitution passes, we'll have Robin Beltramini be the Mayor Pro Tem. If the substitution does not pass, then we go back to the original motion. Correct, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Madam Mayor,
Yes. Councilman Kerwin.
if they could clarify the rules that we're operating under appointment of Mayor Pro Tem.
Under rules and procedure? I'll be happy to do that. I have those here. Appointment of Mayor Pro Tem. The Mayor Pro Tem shall be elected by the council from among its members annually in November.
So I don't see anything about rotation in the appointment there.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Fleming?
when we changed this rules and procedure, was this done 1 year ago? And who brought that resolution forward to change the rules and procedure? on that particular item, appointment of Mayor Pro Tem. Could we go back and look at that? I don't recall.
I don't recall either. We had several changes, some of which, some of our rules have been in place for many, many years. Some have been changed. Some have been, there was a grammatical error that was changed in just in what was in here.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilwoman Beltrame?
while I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Fleming's fervency, it really doesn't matter how the rule had the rotation taken out. The fact is, Mary and I are still members of this body, so we are both eligible to serve for council to make a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, Mrs. Bartholomew, then, are we ready for the vote? Any more discussion?
Mayor Schilling,
No?
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Fleming,
Yes.
Howrlack,
Yes.
Kerwin,
No.
McGinnis,
No.
Slater.
No.
Motion fails. On the original motion, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Fleming,
Yes.
Howrlack,
Yes.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Mayor Schilling.
Yes. Motion passes. I believe the next procedure is for the swearing in. Is that correct, Mrs. Bartholomew?
That is correct.
Okay. Are you going to do it here, up here, or down there?
We did not mic this area up here. If I
Okay.
can get close enough to one of these mics, or I can go down there, either.
Okay.
Council's choice.
You think you could pick it up from this mic?
You can try.
Okay.
Will you raise your right hand? I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Charter of the City of Troy, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of office of Mayor Pro Tem in and for the City of Troy, County of Oakland, State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
I do.
Our next order of business is the adoption of rules of procedure, and council members have that in front of you.
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman Kerwin?
resolve that Troy City Council hereby adopts the rules of procedures of the City Council of the City of Troy as recorded by the City Clerk in the minutes of this meeting.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we approve the rules of procedure. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Howrlack.
I will be voting against the adoption of the rules of procedure for a plethora of reasons, primarily because I believe that 98% of the changes that were made last year were not in the best interest of the citizens of Troy, the City Council, or Troy in general. I look with disfavor at the severe curtailment of public comment availabilities during our council meeting, as well as what I believe is a confusion as far as, and what I also perceive as an unfairness in the rotation of the Mayor Pro Tem. I will not be here next year either, as I am going to be term limited out, and so this is my last year on council. But I do believe that it's important that we have the best rules of procedure available, and I believe we had that in the year ending in November, fiscal year ending November of 2009, and I would like to go back to the 2008-2009 rules of procedure. So I'll be voting against the resolution on the floor.
Further discussion on the resolution before us? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Fleming,
No.
Howrlack,
No.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Mayor Schilling,
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we're going to do our certificates of recognition and special presentations. And our first one is the MML Workers' Compensation Fund Loss Control Achievement Award. And did I see?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cooprider is at the back. Do you want me to come down? I'll come down to the front. And then we also have the University of Michigan Dearborn Center for Innovation Research Labs recognizing the City of Troy as a 5-star community for attracting and retaining entrepreneurial companies. Let me go on down. I didn't have it up there with me. I kept thinking, who's got it? Now, this is such a pleasure to present. Actually, this is being presented to you by the Michigan Municipal League Workers' Compensation Fund. And this is on behalf of 846 fellow members of the League's Workers' Compensation Fund. And they're thanking you and the staff for commitment to safe work practices. And the City of Troy is being recognized for having one of the 2 lowest experience modification factors for the policy year beginning July 1st, 2010 in Category 1. And this award recognizes members for their outstanding efforts in maintaining safe work environments and their dedication to reducing workers' compensation losses through employee training, something that we've valued here in Troy for many, many years. And I know you have many of these previously. Would you like to indicate how many?
Oh, 5 or 6. five or six of these. But,
would you like to say a few words
this
about
can't,
safety?
Sure. This can't be done in this community without the employees. Your employees, the employees who work for this community, do a great job. Upper management is behind them all for the work that they do. Police department is behind, does awful lot of safety training within their own staff. Fire department does that as well. I do most of that for the DPW and the rest of the employees. But all the employees do a great job to continue to work safely throughout the day while they're here working for you.
Thank you.
We did the survey.
Now, the next award that we received is from the University of Michigan Dearborn. They look at entrepreneurial communities and decide who is receiving the awards for the years. And we have received this award. This is our 4th year for it. And this is the eCities 2010 Honored Community presented to the City of Troy. And we are pleased to recognize the hard work of the staff in this, and especially in the economic development area and the manager's office for them choosing Troy as one of the cities that 5-star. And there are very few cities that have received this award over the years, and this again is our 4th year of receiving this. So thank you. Now, our next item is a carryover item, and that is a discussion by City Council and possible action with regarding Council Member Martin Hawrylak. And since I am the one that asked for the special meeting, I feel that I should make a comment to begin so that folks will know how this occurred and my reasoning. First of all, I'd like to indicate that I am a proponent of free speech and certainly am not trying to take away Councilman Hawrylak's right to free speech. The reason that this item came up for a discussion is that council members, as with all legislative bodies, have a vision together of how they feel that their members should proceed. When a letter was sent out shortly before the election, there were members of the community that came to me and indicated that they felt that the letter was not accurate and asked us to do something about it. I said that it was not up to me individually, but I would bring the matter to the City Council for a discussion of how they wanted to proceed on that. I feel that anyone on council or anyone in the community has a right to speak for or against any issue that is before us or any item. That certainly is a right of all the citizens. And we do not lose that right as being council members. But the question becomes the standard by which council members have for the truth and providing that truth, especially when it is in a written form to members of the voting public. And that is the question that council will be discussing because they have all received the letter. And in October, we all signed our ethics policy, which we worked on together, passed by resolution and signed it. And so the question is really a discussion if council feels that the actions met the standard that we expect of council members in our community. So that is why the item is before us this evening. Council members, you have the letter before you, and I await your comments on that item. I'm waiting. You see,
Mayor. Madam Mayor.
Mayor.
Councilmember Fleming, you wish to go first, and then Councilman Slater. I have to caution the audience, please. You will have an opportunity to speak. We have provided that within the agenda. So I would ask that you would hold your applause and your comments and save your comments for when we have public comment. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to cease this discussion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I think we have much more important things to do and deal with in the city than this. This could be a long, drawn-out discussion, or we can end it right now. And I think rather folks, if you're going to, excuse me.
Would you caution the people?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Would you please refrain from clapping? Whether you agree with me or disagree, there are people in this room on both sides, and we're talking about freedom of speech. Okay? So would you please refrain from clapping or showing any sign of approval or disapproval? Let the council do our job here, and hopefully we'll resolve this in a manner that's, pleasing to most. We'll never please everybody. But I really would like to see this dropped. It's a matter of opinion. There are a number of things that this is not the first time that things have occurred that where I felt where people were being censured or being called into question. I don't want to go into those details, but really at this point I think it would be best for this city and for all of us if we just stop this discussion and don't drag out and try to censor a council person, Councilman Hawryk. So that's my suggestion. We just stop, and I'd appreciate that. We can move on to more important things. Thank you.
Councilman Slater?
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say. A week ago, somebody sent me an email and called me the worst name that anybody could possibly call me. Worse than my 35 years as a police officer. But you know what? He had the right to do that. And I don't care whether Councilman Harlech lied in this letter or not. He'll be held accountable if he runs for office again, if he did. I have some things that I would like to say to him regarding the letter, but I'm going to say them to him man to man. I'm not going to say them out in public. So I'm willing to move forward. I agree we have extremely more important things to do than to deal with this tonight.
Any other council members?
Mayor.
Councilwoman Beltramini?
I don't know that anybody was angrier than I was when I received a copy of this letter, and Martin's heard me say this. And as I explained to people how angry I was and why, because only one option was chosen to be showcased in this letter when there were many, I had to reflect on all of the people I talked to. And did I give all of the options as I talked to them? So I think as we sit here at the table, we need to be careful that we hold everyone to the same standard. The other thing that was very interesting is I was telling people, well, you know, he may have violated the code of ethics. They said, well, did he lie? And I said, well, stretch the truth, and there is this phrase in there that could be a lie, but maybe not. And I said, well, and more interesting, our code of ethics doesn't say anything about lying. So that may be the change we want to address, is that it is our obligation to be truthful with the public and move on.
Any other council members that wish to speak?
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman McGinnis?
I think in terms of whether or not we were going to have a discussion about going forward with some sort of formal investigation process, I too agree that I don't want that discussion to happen because I think it will take away from a lot of other issues that we need to be dealing with. However, I would say that it's my understanding that council is to speak through their resolutions, and we had a lot of discussions about the library proposals here at the table, and we did that so that we could have our questions answered and we could have discussion about them. So I think on a personal level, even somewhat of a professional level, I don't necessarily agree with the tactic of sending out the one-sided letter. I don't think it lends itself to having the discussion that was necessary, but I don't really think that we should go forward with an investigation and drag this out. The damage that he sought to do by sending the letter, it's kind of a moot point at this time. So I think we've had the discussion. That's really what I think needed to be done on council, so we felt like we could have our voices heard. And if this is the way that Councilperson Hawryluk wants to communicate with his constituents, which is obvious because this is the second time he's done it, then the voters can decide whether or not they think that's an appropriate way for him to reach out and talk to them about the issues.
Anyone else?
Mayor,
Councilman Hawryluk?
two things that I've heard concern me greatly, and they call into question my character. And regardless of whether or not this body decides to proceed with any sort of a formal resolution regarding this, which I would strongly encourage you not to, I think it's important to clear the record. Now, what I heard were two things. I heard, one, that I purported to speak for council. In spite of the fact that my home address is on this letter, there's no city logo, my name's at the top of my letter, my personal email address is on the letter, I speak in the singular personal, I say I don't say we, and it says on the bottom, paid for by Martin Hawryluk with my home address on it. So I would defy anybody to prove to me that I'm speaking for council. Not only that, but most of the people in this room who have observed city government would know that on major issues, the mayor and I disagree on almost everything. And that's fine. That is perfectly fine. But you know what? The mayor has a lot of good things to say, and so I listen to her, and I don't call her a liar. But the other thing is, I have been called a liar, or it has been insinuated that I lied, and that is very far from the truth. The areas where individuals have pointed to where I have supposedly lied are areas where I've expressed my opinion, or I've even seen words that have been added to the... People talk about this stuff, and they add words to sentences, and that can change the meaning of the sentence. And I hope it's inadvertently, but I've seen it used over and over and over again to claim that I said something when in fact I didn't, because one word was added to that sentence that was not in this letter. And so I don't think from a policy perspective it's a good idea to accuse an individual of lying unless the individual has lied. And I would certainly like to know where I have supposedly done that, and because the answer is no, I didn't. I expressed my opinion. So now getting onto this opinion thing here, I have lots of things I can bring up as exhibits, but one is an ad in the October 29, 2009 Troy Times. It says, if you support us, please join Mayor Louise Schilling, former Mayor and Councilwoman Jean Stein, former Prosecutor David Gorsica, former Councilman Tony Pallotta, Councilwoman Mary Kerwin, and so on and so forth, to support my new colleague here, or I should say my colleague here, Mr. Dane Slater. There's nothing wrong with endorsements. However, this body never spoke and said that we were going to endorse Dane Slater, and therefore, using that line of thinking, I ask you, how can Mayor Schilling and Councilwoman Mary Kerwin, speaking for council, endorse Slater when I didn't endorse him at all? Furthermore, we go over to Exhibit B, which is winwithkerwin.com. It says here that Mary is especially pleased to have garnered the support from board members in all 7 of the school districts in Troy and all members of the Troy Planning Commission and a majority of the Troy City Council. So one could say that, boy, when did the Planning Commission and the City Council endorse candidates? Obviously they didn't, because they're individual members that are endorsing Mary. Again, something perfectly fine, something you see all the time. Nothing wrong with it. And then there's the issue of the mayor making a distinction between written and non-written. Or maybe it's written in paper and written in email and written on Twitter or written on Facebook or written on someone's blog, or maybe spoken at Hollywood is okay, but being spoken at the Troy Sports Center is not. Where do we make these distinctions? Our communication as elected officials is multifaceted. And as a matter of fact, if the mayor said one thing to one person in email and it was unethical, it wouldn't make a difference that it's one person on one email versus 10,000 pieces or 2,000 pieces or whatever the case might be. I think that simply bringing this up has undermined the whole integrity of the Code of Ethics to begin with. You could have a sitting member of City Council who truly is doing something unethical. And if you corrupt the process by misusing it, by crying woof when there is no woof, then when there really is a woof, people don't listen. And so I think that's a real shame. I can go on, but I really do object to the fact that I've been accused of lying, and I've been accused of speaking for council when it was neither my intent to do either, and I beg to differ, because I don't think I did either, and I know for a fact that I didn't either.
Any others that wish to speak on this item?
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
I didn't receive a copy until that morning, but I wasn't really that surprised to see a copy. My colleague has written letters before. The only consideration this time was a month before we had signed this Code of Ethics. I agree with Councilmember Beltramini that if it's something that we desire, that someone doesn't use a title on the letter, then that should be brought forward in either our code or our rules. If not, this is not new. This is something that has happened in the past. As I said, calling it a library district, I guess, concerned me, but that was all after the fact. I thought it was an independent library, which is different than a library district. And then the wills end up paying twice for one library and so on. Those were surprises. But the ability to send one out, if it's the desire of this council going forward to have someone not put a title there, everyone knows who Martin Hawryluk is. The letter goes to the people that he wanted it to go to, and it said the things that he chose to say. And I wasn't surprised, nor do I think it meets grounds for censure. So if the council wants to be specific in either iterating things in the code of ethics going forward, and there have been a couple suggestions here, fine. Or if people want to put it into rules going forward, then fine. Or if we just want to make it a practice without even putting anything down there, not to put a title on it, that's fine. I don't think that there are that many Martin Hawryluks in the city of Troy, whether there was a councilman or not, that people would have been confused over to whom from this letter came. So I don't think this is grounds. I think going forward, if people want to bring something forward, then fine. If not, enough.
Any others? Council members, I appreciate your comments on this issue. I felt obligated to bring it forward and let council as a group speak on it rather than individuals. And if council members in thinking about it decide that they want to have something in the Code of Ethics or in rules, they can bring that forward at any time, and of course it would apply to all of us. But I think that we've given a chance here. All 7 of us have had a chance to speak on the matter, and so I think that it's time for us to move on to the rest of the meeting, and we will do that at this time. We did have a number of people sign up to speak this evening, and you know that by our rules of procedure that if there are more than 15 that have signed up to speak, council may suspend the rules and change the time frame from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. So at this time I move to suspend the rules in order to amend the time frame on public comment. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we suspend the rules to amend the time frame on comments. Discussion on the suspension of rules? Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Hawryluk?
No.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. I move to limit public comment, individual comments to 3 minutes this evening.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilman Slater. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Hawryluk?
Just to reiterate, I can't say I'm never, but I do not think it's a good idea to limit public comment to 3 minutes. And
Ladies and gentlemen.
And I also want to assure you that I will be voting yes on some resolutions coming up as well. Because this is like my 4th in a row or something that I voted no on. No, actually there was one I voted yes on.
And that is our right to vote yes or no, and we all agree on that one. Okay. Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
No.
Hawryluk?
No.
Motion passes. Therefore, with public comment, we found that when we have the number of people that wish to speak, it works quite efficiently if I call the first 5 names, and those people line up in the aisle behind each other, and then when their 3 minutes is up, and you want to set the clock for 3 minutes, Mrs. Plata? Then they yield the mic to the next person. When we get to the 5th person, I call the next 5, and we just keep going like that. All right? So the first 5 people to sign up to speak this evening, Douglas Hepner, Audrey Zembruski, Harry Philo, Ellen Huderak, and M.L. Geiger. If those 5 people would line up in that order, please. Good evening, and feel free to adjust the mic. Yes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councilman and Councilwoman. My name is Doug Hepner. Listening to this action of censoring Martin Hawryluk is more of censoring, as I understand it, because as I've read the letter, it is clear that he was writing it as Mr. Hawryluk, not as Councilman Hawryluk. This action is not in keeping with the highest tradition of our founding fathers, which freedom of information and freedom of speech is foremost. I think that the actions that you're discussing about the Code of Ethics would have more of an effect to silence dissent than to allow open dissent. Thank you.
Thank you. Audrey Zembrowski.
Hi, Audrey Zembrowski. I've been here 32 years, and I'm still talking as a resident net. But my granddaughter called me, she's 25 today, and said, Grandma, do you know on Facebook it said that Audrey Zembrowski, who's on the library board, hates the library, hates the people, hates kids, and that's why she's voted no. That is not true. I have fought to get the children's library cards. I have fought to get extra checkout points in our library. I have donated millions of, not thousands, but thousands of dollars worth of books already. I have purchased new books, never asked to put a name in there, didn't want credit for it, didn't take a tax write-off for it. And they're telling me, and I taught catechism, religion classes for 26 years, and I hate children? Somebody's got this wrong on Facebook. But my granddaughter wrote back and said, you get off of Facebook because you lie. My grandmother's right, and I care for that library. And I'm here to say, if we were to put the money down, we did not vote the 1.9 mils or whatever it was at that time voted down because it says in there in one of the papers that this money would have gone to the library. No, it wasn't going to. It was never said that it was going to go to the library. That's why that got voted down. No one said anything about the library. Even the kids that got their new voters registrations voted in favor of it because they thought all that money was going to go strictly to the library. We know it had to go for lawsuits that we had. We still got some pending. We're not foolish. We don't sit back here. I do my homework, and I try to find out where and so on. But nobody ever gives us the amount that we're spending. Maybe we would vote in tax money, but we don't know what we're paying it for. Are the lawsuits legit? We don't know. So this is what is a big problem. But as far as me not liking the library, I got news for you. I might be term limited out too, but the thing is that I have fought for that library for everything that we could possibly get done. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Harry Philo.
Mayor, Councilman, staff, my name is Harry Philo. I'm a professional research librarian who's lived in Troy for more than 23 years now. Our library is the center of the community. It's a gathering place for all ages and a technology center. Being a citizen of Troy and having access to the library and other city services is very valuable. I use the library frequently because of the resources that are offered, the availability and high speed of the computers, and the helpful staff. For much of my work, I prefer to use this library over local university and research libraries. A Troy Public Library card opens the door to electronic databases and other resources, including medical and scientific and professional journals that are more limited at neighboring and regional libraries. My observation is that all ages use the library, from school kids preparing research papers to other people needing help finding online materials. After I voted yes on Prop 1, I voted no on the other 3. And unless something changes after last week, after last week's vote, the library will close on June 30th, 2011. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ellen Huderek.
Madam Mayor, City Council, I'm a 20-year resident, former part-time city employee, former auto industry public relations executive, wife, mother, taxpayer, registered Republican, community volunteer. And I'm just here to express my deep disappointment at what has just happened in our community. And it's not even about Proposal 1. And you know what, Martin? It's not even about your stupid letter. It's about how we are acting as a community of people. I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted by the behavior here in the audience today. We are losing our sense of spirit. I'm not even looking at my sentences right now. Our children deserve better of us as adults. The TCU, I can't figure out who they are. I go on their website, I can't find their names, but I get mailings that are just, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say it's factually accurate. The tone, the tenor. What are we doing in the name of saving $100, $150? Those of us who are lucky with really big homes, $300. What is going on here? Martin, my problem with your letter is it lacked context. Maybe it's factually accurate in your mind, but there's no context to it. It did not sound like you sat down with Rhonda Hendrickson of Proposal 1 and talked with her. These people knocked themselves out with fact-finding and in good faith come forward. There were multiple entities with some sort of political puppet string going on here. I can't figure out what it is, but I'm on a mission to figure it out because it's toxic. And we are suffering, in this body, Martin included, are suffering from this situation. There's a disease, and we need to stop acting this way. There's mistrust. There's, I'm hearing people behind me, it doesn't matter what some of the council people say. They're disdainful. Why are we like this with one another? We're better than this. This is bigger than the library. The morale of the employee base in the city hall has been demised. Why? Why can't we get back to being optimistic about what we are? We're smarter than this. We're wiser than this. We have it going on. Let's do this thing. And let's do it right. Thank you.
Mr. Geiger, before you speak, I'm going to call the next 5 names, so hold on just a minute, and then we'll start your clock, okay? The next 5 people, please line up behind Mr. Geiger. That is Paul Beck, John Myronek, Dave Henderson, Gordon Shepke, and Kay Shepke. Would those 5 people please line up behind Mr. Geiger? Mr. Geiger, go ahead.
I'm M.L. Geiger. I'm a resident of Troy for 43 years this week. I could thank the people for preventing me from having some increased taxes due to the vote last week. I could also thank them for reducing my taxes in the future because my property is now worth less than it was before the library millage defeats. But I don't care to take that position. I think it is a very short-term, short-sighted point of view. I think this library, being one of the very best in the country, needs to be maintained. I stopped last week and talked to Mr. Hollowick and asked him why he has become so anti-Troy. This premise he denied. But in our conversation, he did suggest to me or indicate to me that he thought 98% of the Troy residents want a library. However, those who voted did not support that point of view, at least from a standpoint of paying any additional money. I had hoped tonight to hear Mr. Hollowick present to this council for some action a constructive, concrete, detailed point of view as to how the library can be maintained by tweaking the city budget, what could be compromised, what could be eliminated, what is maybe not quite as important as the library is to this community. I haven't heard it. I don't think it's on the agenda. I don't think he needs to go to the Troy Tea Party meeting tomorrow night to get more ideas. Surely over all of these months, he must have a whole list of things that he could present, and possibly Mr. Fleming could help him, who has been given less publicity for a similar point of view, as I read in the paper. It is my opinion that taxes and the budgeting they're following can be, if done right, can be value for the money spent. I still would hope that Mr. Holowich will present a very detailed, specific, constructive, positive approach to salvage the library and give suggestions to the commission, the council here, as to what should be altered. Uh-oh.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Could you give me just another second, please? It is my opinion that this is one of the most important things that this council can do. If we can't get it right here, let me say one other thing. The Hooters episode gave Hooters about $1 million publicity, and Troy got some negative publicity. As far as I can read, Troy has only gotten negative publicity about the library situation. Please, as a council, will you address this issue constructively? Please put aside the polarization that is so obvious here and get above that. Put that aside and do the right thing for the residents of Troy, the community, and the entire reputation of the city of Troy.
Mr. Beck, will you come forward?
This is going to be a hard chapter to follow. Last time I was here was the saltwater pool. Now today it's Hooters. It's great that we have this public option. What I'd like to say is that we'll go back 1 week, and we had our national election. In the election, the people of the United States sent Washington a message. The people and the residents of the state of Michigan sent Lansing a message. The people that voted in the city election also sent council a message. And the message is very simple, is that we're not buying what you're selling. That's what it boils down to. Yes, we need a library. But I remember when this whole thing took place, is that we were threatened with police being cut 50%. I don't see the police department getting cut 50%. We're going to have to cut other things that were dear to the residents of this city. We're not cutting the transit center, which is costing us a large amount of money. We're not cutting retirement and pensions to the city workers, which we need to be brought under control. We continue to spend. I own a business, and if I don't have money to spend, then I got to work harder. We all got to cut, and I don't see any cuts being taken place here in the city. Yes, we need a library, that's for sure. What I'd like to do is make a suggestion that maybe we look into the feasibility of outsourcing the city manager's position, because he's not doing his job when he's got to set out a $200,000 contract for a feasibility on where we can cut money. I think it's disgusting, because we're paying that staff $500,000 a year in salaries and benefits, and we're not getting our money's worth. Thank you.
Our next speaker is... Ladies and gentlemen, this actually is your third warning from me and one from Councilman Fleming.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Beltrame?
Having run meetings that tend to get a little out of hand and people want to clap, and I understand the frustration, deaf people clap like this. I'm serious. They do. And it does not disrupt the meeting. people can go ahead and speak, and you can still illustrate your point that you support what's been said. So it's really not comical to laugh at how people who cannot hear have to communicate. And it's something that would work for us tonight if the mayor would allow it.
I think that people should respect the rights of each member to speak at the microphone, as we are respecting their rights to do that. Would you come forward, sir, and give us your name?
Thank you. I'm John Marinick. I'm a Troy resident for nearly 20 years. I'm glad that the council is seemingly dismissing the allegations against Mr. Hawryluk. It seems, though, still troubling to me that ethics rules were conveniently used just days before a very close election. These rules should not be used to fight political battles. I think it's wrong and inappropriate at such a close proximity to an election. But I'm glad that you guys are going to stop political rivals in the future from using quotes and other political pieces against each other when one side doesn't have the majority and the other side does, and tit for tat, finger pointing and bickering. I hope that can stop today and we can move on to the more serious issues. Thank you, and good luck, Mr. Hawryluk.
Our next speaker is Mr. Gordon Shepke. I know he didn't use his total 3 minutes.
Okay. We're really not here to talk about the library. The library is a dead issue. At this point, at least the propositions are dead issues. This special meeting tonight on the possible censure of Martin Hawryluk is not only a travesty of justice, in my opinion, it's a violation of his constitutional rights. A book I read, the book on the essay of trial by Jerry Lazandris Sooner wrote, "Government is established for the protection of the weak against the strong. This is the principle, if not the sole motive, for the establishment of legitimate government. It is only the weaker party that loses their liberties when government becomes oppressive. The stronger party in all governments are free by virtue of their superior strength and never oppress themselves." Is this what's happening with Martin Hawryluk now in this council room? If anybody uses power to discredit, humiliate, or denigrate the character of anyone whose opinion interferes with their personal agendas, this is not only unethical, it is not only wrong, it's unethical. The words of George Washington ring in my ears. Government is not reason. It is not eloquence. It is force. Like fire, it is dangerous. It is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. John Adams wrote in 1727, "Mobs will never do to govern states or command armies until they are elected." Is that what the majority of Troy's council wants to become? Do they want to walk left? Do they want to be a lockstep majority to run roughshod over its minority members and its citizens? I hope not. In America, our Constitution gives us natural rights, inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, learning, travel, and self-defense. Henceforth, laws and statutes which violate natural rights, though they have the color of laws, are not laws but impostors. The United States Constitution was written to protect the natural rights from being tampered with by legislatures or councils. In my opinion, if this censure goes through, it violates Martin's civil rights, natural rights, and all rules of decency. We are here to defend Martin Hawryluk, we're to defend Martin. Martin was elected by the people of Troy to help run this city and give his counsel and insights to answer questions concerning addressed to him by email or whatever source. The President of the United States gave his open support and official opinion on the building of a mosque at Ground Zero. Was he censured? No, he was not censured. If you censure Martin Hawryluk, you disrespect the citizens of Troy, and this petty and unjust behavior, shame on you if you do it.
Next, before the next speaker, I'm going to call the next 5 names. Is Kay Shepke here? The next 5 speakers, you can come up to the mic, just don't start talking yet. Marianne Bernardi, Dwayne Lamars, John Hennessy, Matthew Magali, and Linda Memason. Those 5 people, would you come forward, please? Thank you. Yes, please give us your name.
Dave Henderson. Madam Mayor, Council, you've taken all the arrows I have away from me with what you did with Martin tonight, and I appreciate that. Nobody should be censured with what I saw happen with Martin. So again, I appreciate the fact that you did what was right. What I am reduced to is my last couple of sentences, and that's the mandate of the people. And that's in February, we voted down a big tax increase. This was just another form of the library thing, was just another form of a tax increase. We're not in a position where, in a hurting community where we've all suffered job losses, cutbacks, pay decreases, if we haven't experienced them personally, we know somebody that has. We're not in a situation where we can pay more taxes. We're in a situation where we need to look at the city, look at the budgets, cut them dramatically, just as we have had to do in our own households, and try to see if we can fit some of the extra things like libraries and community centers into them. I think we can do that. One of the things that I read the other day from Mr. Zerlag's office was we have about a $2.2 million salary in about 17 or 18 positions at the top of the pyramid in Troy, and $1.3 million in benefits. That's an extraordinary amount of benefits as compared to the salaries. Salaries didn't even look that out of line to me in terms of some of the positions, but if we can't control the benefits, there were 12 company cars in the mix to the tune of about $55,000. If those numbers are accurate, and I have every reason to think they are because they came from Mr. Zerlag's office, then we still have not done the real hard work that it's going to take to get the budget back in line so that we can provide basic services like a library to the community. I voted no on Proposal 1. I voted no for taxes, and we shouldn't have any reason to have those things in front of us if we're not willing to make the hard choices in the city management. Thanks.
Our next speaker, let me see here. It is supposed to be Mary Ann Bernardi, sir. I don't know who you are. Next one is Mary Ann Bernardi. I have to go in the order that they're signed up.
Oh, sure.
Good
And
evening.
Councilwoman Beltramini, thank you for your suggestion. It seems like we're liking it. And I don't think people were laughing at the deaf or their, I think what we were laughing at is it seemed kind of silly for us to do, but we're really enjoying it. So thank you for that. And it's working, so thanks. Also like to thank you and Councilman Wade Fleming for helping us with the Monday meeting. I thought that really showed class, and it was very gracious of you to do that. Hello, Mayor and Council, on this dark day in Troy's history. And I say that because this attack on Councilman Hawrylak is an attack on all of us. It's an attack on our basic freedoms. An employee, whether public or private, can be fired for public statements that are perceived to conflict with management. However, a councilman is elected by the public to present his independent perceptions to his constituency. It is his duty to promote and support whatever he believes to be in the best interest of the people, and this is exactly what Councilman Hawrylak did. You were very anxious to create a code of ethics, and now that you have it, you are using it as a weapon to stifle dissent. I am convinced that you will use a mission statement in the same way. You want council to speak with one voice, to opine only one opinion, the one that you select. That is un-American. What you want is an authoritative government, a dictatorship. Ironically, one of the tenets of the Code of Ethics states, quote, encourage the free expression of opinion by all council members, end of quote. You forgot to add that the opinion they express must be your opinion. You cannot charge that Councilman Hawrylak spoke for the whole council. Almost every sentence started with this first person singular, I, all the way through the letter. It was signed only by Councilman Hawrylak. It clearly stated it was paid only by Councilman Hawrylak. And I'm here to ask you, how would you have him sign that letter? Would you have him leave off the fact that he's a councilman? I myself would be very suspicious if a council person sent me a letter and did not disclose the fact that he was a councilman. I think that would be close to fraud. I mean, it would just be horrible. I would want to know. And also, since over 50% of the voters agreed with Councilman Hawrylak, could you possibly call that a special interest group? I don't think so. Mayor, the Troy Times said you blasted the letter, saying it was filled with lies and innuendo. In my opinion, your words constituted a libelous smear and should be dealt with accordingly. Your attack on Councilman Hawrylak is an attack on our freedoms and our democracy as a whole, and it cannot and should not be tolerated.
Actually, that quote was another member of the citizenry that said that. It was not my comment.
I have the article with me.
I know, but
I have it with me, and you were quoted as saying that. In fact, I brought it in case you said that. It's here. And I could show it to anyone who'd like to see it, including you, Mayor.
Okay. I'll be happy to look at it, Mary Ann. Thank you. Yes, sir. Come forward.
I'm Dwayne Lammers, a Troy resident for 23 years. Madam Mayor and distinguished council members, one of our previous speakers spoke about how this whole matter is much larger than the mere library issue, and it certainly is. It's called the U.S. Constitution. Secondly, reference was also made to having a larger context for Mr. Hawrylak's letter. The larger context is also quite clear. It's a question, it seems to me, of expanding government, greater taxes, and the consequent excuse to spend them. That has been totally rejected 6 days ago. And I think that is part of the context for the recent brouhaha here about the letter. That has got to go. I would say two other points here about all of this. If the City Council chooses to amend its Code of Ethics, it better be careful and keep in mind the U.S. Constitution in doing so. If we do that, and one other point, Madam Mayor, that you made too, I believe I am now restating this correctly. You seem to have stated that the council ought to be speaking in unity. I would remind everybody that there is no legislative body in this United States that speaks in unity, never has and never will. That is the essence of democracy. Thank you.
Our next speaker, please come forward and give us your name.
Hello, my name is Linda Mamassian. I've been in Troy for 32 years. The city has changed a lot in the 32 years I've been here. It used to had the nature of town transitioning from a small town to a large city. Things have changed, and the city has changed with it. In the election last week, as other people have said, there was a message that was sent to governments, nationally, state, county, and locally. People are tired of too much spending. People are tired of not being listened to. I'm not really going to address the motion for censure that's been addressed by other people. I hope that you will readdress the budget and the library. I raised my kids here. We benefited from the library. But I voted against the original February millage. I voted against Proposal 1 because I did not like the way it was done. I did not like the amount of spending that was involved in it. The city of Troy likes to spend money. That was okay when we were a rich town in rich times. We're no longer a rich town. We're no longer in rich times. My family's income has been cut by half. The city's income has been cut drastically. And yet you've built this grandiose canopy at the library. You could hire a lot of librarians for what was billed or budgeted for that. The beautification of Big Beaver in the park there. lots of money. It could have been spent on different things, or it could have been not spent. There are a lot of ways that money is being spent. So one small thing, which you're going to be addressing tonight, is, and most people have been ignoring it, it's down at the bottom of the page, it's the wind turbines. You're going to be spending, my goodness, $28,725, including 3 years of maintenance. I understand that most or all of that will be block grant, won't come out of our budget. After the first 3 years, you'll be spending $1,600 a year in maintenance. Why? Well, I did some research. The 2 wind turbines, if you assume a wind blowing constantly at 11 miles per hour, they will produce 2,000 kilowatt hours each. That means that between the 2 of them, based on Detroit Edison residential rates, and the city probably pays less than that, the 2 of them combined will produce the equivalent of $492 a year savings in electricity. We're spending $1,600 a year for the next few decades to save $492 a year in electricity. And if you look at the documentation behind this, you're going to be hopefully buying several more at a reduced rate of purchase, but still it's going to cost. One example, how many other things is the city essentially wasting money on? Cut your budget and then talk to me about raising my taxes, because my budget's already been cut to the bone. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call the next speaker, you can come up, sir, but I'm going to call the next 5 people. Edna Abraham, Daniel Fair, Linda Kaima, Dan Barnhart, and Tony Haddad. Would those 5 people please line up behind this gentleman? Is this Matthew?
No, my name is Jack Hennessy. I'm a 32-year resident of Troy.
Excuse me, yes.
And Madam Mayor, councilpersons, I think, in fact, the council acted very prudently to put aside the motion to censure Martin. You've heard others before me speak passionately and forcefully about his First Amendment rights, with which I agree. I could not add any more than they have. I think you've also heard the message about TCU was not against the library. It was against increased taxes, just as much as it was against increased taxes last February in the general millage proposal. That was the message that resounded less overwhelmingly, but still prevailed nonetheless. I think it's good that you dropped this motion and not waste any time on it, because I think council has an extraordinary challenge to find within the existing budget, and I understand the revenues are around $140 million last I read, a way to fund that library at the expense of some things which you've heard enumerated by people before me, which Troy citizens feel are not nearly as much needed as a library. So I think you have a very formidable task ahead of you, and I don't think anyone needs to be reminded, but next November, I believe the whole council and the mayor, that is all up for election. And I really think the message that was sent this year is, if the people who are in place now don't do it, there'll be other people in place the next time. Thank you.
The next speaker, please. Give us your name.
Good evening. My name is Edna Abraham. And I was hoping to never have to come back to City Council to speak about the Troy Library, and perhaps you felt the same way. But instead, I stand before you, a person in mourning. And I mourn for the imminent shutdown of our beloved library, and I mourn at what our city has become. We have become torn apart. And all of this on politics in regards to a library. I can't help but reflect on the events of the past year and what things could have been done differently. All the what-ifs. What if, instead of an option 1 or 2, that the city had put together an option that did not pit fire and safety against highly esteemed city services? What if voters had approved the millage in February? What if City Council had approved funding for the library in the 3-year rolling budget? What if 3 spurious library millages had not appeared on the November ballot? What if anti-tax extremists had not distributed misinformation about Proposal 1 and the Michigan Public Act 164? What if voters realized that the petition that is being circulated today to force the city in keeping the library open is non-binding? What if voters hadn't been approached by these petitioners at their polling locations on Election Day? What if voters had been given a chance, a clear yes-no vote on Proposal 1 with all of this hubris? And lastly, what if Councilman Hawryluk had not sent out a letter signed as councilman instead of Troy resident? Councilman Hawryluk, it will come to no surprise that I don't agree with the contents of your letter. However, that is not my concern, since as a private citizen, you have every right under the First Amendment to express your opinion. My concern is that you signed the letter as councilman, and I think a reasonable person reading that letter could have easily been led to believe that you were speaking in an official capacity of some sort. So I think it was disingenuous. I see later on in the agenda the library's a topic again and some potential funding. I'm very happy to hear that. I'm very much looking forward to hearing what proposals may now be on the table. I do find it a bit interesting that these new proposals have come about 6 months after the budget was approved in May, and if it's being brought forward for more political motives so that voters may remember this at a later date. Again, I'm interested in hearing what has to be said about the library and what could be done about it, but I can think of about 15,065 people who are interested in the motives behind the proposals being brought forward. Thank you.
Our next speaker, please.
My name is Don Barnhart.
Would you move the mic up so we can hear? There. Thank you, sir.
And I'll just say that I've been here longer than the city of Troy has. So I was here long before you guys were. I agree with several things that have been said. That I think that most of the people in the city of Troy want the library. What the people of Troy resent is the way it's handled with the city council and the politicians. They send messages to the government in Washington and the state, and I think they're sending it here. We don't want these games played. We voted down a millage last spring. They're going to cut the police. They're going to cut the fire department. So, okay, well, we won't increase taxes, but we'll make you vote on a tax increase if you guys want the library. Well, we want the library, but we don't want to pay the taxes. We expect you to do your job, appropriate the money properly. We don't need a city transit station over here that's going to go nowhere. It's going to be a boondoggle just like the Detroit train was. We had a train that ran to Detroit. Nobody rode it, so they discontinued it. Now we're going to spend millions and millions of dollars building a new one, building a new train station. City of Troy's dumping money into it, putting in fancy red bricks on the road to make it look fancy, all the lawsuits, all the other things we spend money on that we don't need to spend money on, but we don't have money for a library. If you guys would do your job and appropriate the money properly and discontinue some of these things that don't need to be done, we would have enough money to go around. Thank you.
Our next speaker, please. Linda Kaima.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I've been a proud resident of Troy for 36 years, and I'm still proud of the city I moved to so long ago, a city that hopefully will continue to be recognized as a 5-star community for attracting and retaining entrepreneurial companies. However, behaviors of late makes one wonder if it will. I wasn't always involved politically in this city. However, I believe in this city and care about its reputation and its future. Events of late, some of which we've witnessed tonight, have cast a dark cloud on our city. It's time for this to stop. One of the reasons this letter from Martin Hawryluk was brought to a head was because it's time for this to stop. We need to bring civility and truth and ethics back to the city of Troy. I employ all citizens and leaders to help bridge the divide that has been evidenced in our community. We all have a civic duty to know the facts before we make decisions. And isn't it ironic that the majority of the surrounding communities in the last 2 elections voted for libraries? Do your homework on the issues and soon the candidates and help bring civility back to Troy. I'd also like to remind people that make public comment to stay to hear the response to public comment, because we've heard the same thing week after week after week. It's been corrected week after week after week, and we're still hearing the same thing about the transit center, the brick paving, and so forth. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Don
Dan Fair.
Dan? Oh, yes. Somehow you guys got out of order. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I'm only here tonight to say thank you. I'm a 38-year resident of the city of Troy. I've raised 5 wonderful daughters. They all went on to get further their education. They all went on to marry. They all went on to get wonderful jobs. And 3 of the 5 have moved back to Troy. I grew up in Troy. My parents lived here. I have a brother that lives here. I had 2. One was transferred and moved on. So we had a family here of 2 parents, 3 brothers, 5 of my children. I don't know how many nephews I have in the city of Troy. I have 5 grandchildren, 2 of which are going to Troy schools already. We're talking about an entire family here. And I just came to say thank you. And I'd like to specifically mention the Troy School District is wonderful. I'm proud to have my grandchildren go here. I'd specifically like to say thank you to the Troy Police Department. When I see a Troy police car, I'm proud of that. When I go by a Troy fire hall, I'm proud of that. When I was taking care of aging parents in the city of Troy and we had to call 911, they came within 1 minute. By the time I left the door to go back to my aging father, there was a firefighter on that porch. One time, my oldest daughter, who's now 38 years old, was choking on a chicken bone. And the dispatch operator told me, make sure your front door is open. And in a panic, I went to the front door. And by the time I went back to help my daughter, there was a Troy police officer charging through the front door. EMS came. So I don't know if it's a requirement you council members to live in Troy or not. Is it?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good. I don't know how many of you ever called 911, ever relied on the Troy Police Department, EMS, or a Troy firefighter, but they are the finest. So I ask you, all city employees are wonderful. You've got a real difficult decision to make here. But one in particular, you've got a life and death decision to make when you start looking at our emergency services, our firefighters, EMS, and our police department. Please do what you can do to keep that intact. I know you've got a difficult job ahead of you. I trust you're going to do the right thing, but please don't mess with that. It works beautiful. And if you ever have to call those services, rest assured they're going to be there for you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Tony Haddad.
Yes.
I'm going to take a break.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Tony Haddad. I live in Troy for 30 years. I worked for Troy School District for about 17 years as a campus security and mentoring the kids. I'm not a fancy speaker, but I say the truth. Everybody knows that I say the truth. There is a situation, in Troy that, first of all, the previous speakers, there's some of them been informed very well, some of them not been informed, and some of them so-called from the other side. What I mean by the other side is there's my side, me and my friends, okay, and there's the other side, okay. The other side is starting with the chief, with the city,
Mr. Haddad, you need to address here.
With everybody here except Fleming and Hawrelak, okay. With the exception of Hawrelak and Fleming, everybody else is on the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the other side is, our side is the other side. The difference between our side and the